All right. Hi, friends. Today we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. We've been talking about least common multiple, which helps us find our least common denominator. And then we also did adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So we're going to take the steps to find the least common denominator in order to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Because you cannot add or subtract fractions that have denominators that are different. So you have to go through the least common denominator steps in order to find one that has the same denominator as the other, and we have to make them into equivalent fractions. So we're going to be breaking this up into steps. We're going to be breaking it up into adding like fractions with unlike denominators. The next video will be adding, not adding, but only subtracting unlike denominators. And then we will be doing a full review on both of them later on. So today in this video, we're just going to be focusing on adding, but I'm going to do overall at first. So steps for adding and subtracting. We have to convert to have both denominators to have the same, to be the same. So we have to find the least common multiple or least common denominator. Then we are only going to subtract the numerators. So once we change the denominators, they stay the same. We're going to keep the denominators the same. And then we will convert them to a mixed number or simplify if needed. Okay? So these steps right here are listed down here. This is our 44 notes. Okay, so I'm going to go through here and do one of the steps, and then I'm going to move on to the next page because this will be subtraction in our next video. So I want to find my least common denominator or least common multiple. That's the same. The least common multiple is the number, and the denominator is when we change it into a fraction. So when I want to find the least common multiple, I want to write 2, 4, 6. I'm going to count by this number. Skip count. 10, 12, 14, 16. And I'm going to, if I need to keep going, I will, so I'll leave some space. I'm going to count 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. All right, so now I'm going to get another pen color, and I'm going to circle what they have in common. They have 12 in common. And that's it. So 12 is going to be my least common denominator. It is a denominator that they would have in common. That is the smallest number that they would have in common. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my least common denominator in a new fraction. So I have to say I need to make a new fraction that is equivalent to this fraction, but it has a denominator of 12. Same here. So what would I do to 3 to make it a 12? I would have to multiply it by 4. Now, whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top to make it the same. It's like the jealous little brother or sister that has to have what you have. You have to do the same. So now my new fraction is 8 twelfths. 8 twelfths is equivalent to 2/3. It's just if you were to take 2/3 and cut it into more slices, it would still be the same amount. It would just have smaller pieces. And I do the same thing. What do I multiply 2 by to get 12? To get to 12? Well, that would be 6. So I have to do the same thing to my top number, and 1 times 6 is 6. So now my new numbers, I'm going to move over here, are 8 twelfths plus 6 twelfths. Okay? So if I add 8 plus 4, I get 16. That's my second step was here. My third step is here. I'm going to rewrite them. And then my fourth step is to add them. So that's 14 twelfths. Now we know that 14 twelfths is an improper fraction. So I cannot leave that like that. So I'm just to put this improper fraction. I can't leave it like that. So I'm going to say, when we write this, this is 14 divided by 12. We practiced that earlier in the chapter. So how many times does 12 go into 14? It goes in 1 time, and I have 2 left over. Okay, so my whole number is here, and my remainder is over my 2 twelfths. Now I know that I cannot keep 2/12 like this. I would have to simplify. So I would have to go on and find, I'm going to move this up just a little, and I'm going to have to find the greatest common factor here, because I know that 2/12 is not simplified. Now, how do I know that? If I was to write my greatest common factor of what I can multiply together in order to get 2 and 12, it would be, I could divide these numbers by 2 to get a new fraction. That would be to simplify. So my new one is 1 and 1/6. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to make sure this is glued on, and I'm going to move to the next page to do some more addition. We're going to do 5, 6 plus 1/2. Okay. My first step would be to find the common denominators. So I'm going to go 2 and 6. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I usually keep going until I run out of room. Okay, and I might have to keep going if I don't find anything that they have in common. Then I'm going to go 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54. So I'm going to go through and circle what they have in common. They have 6 in common. They have 12 in common. They have 18 in common, and I'm sure it would continue to go. My lowest number is 6. So I'm going to change my numbers, my fractions, into something with a 6. 6 times what is 6? That's 1. 5 times 1 is 5. So it already has 6. I don't need to change it. Then I say, what times 2 is 6? That's 3. So now I have to multiply 1 times 3 to get 3/6. So these are my new numbers I'm going to rewrite. 5/6 plus 3/6. I'm going to keep the 6 the same, and I'm going to add across the numerators. Now, this is an improper fraction, so I'm going to say, how many times does 6 go into 8? 1 time with 2 left over. Now, I know that this is not simplified. One way to know is that they're both even numbers. If they're both even numbers, I can divide it by 2. But if they're both even numbers, I know for a fact that they are not simplified. So I'm going to find my GCF to simplify, which is what we learned earlier in this chapter. Okay? So I have 2 and I have 6. What do I have to multiply together to get 2 and to get 6? What they have in common, that's the largest number, is 2. So I'm going to divide these by 2 to get my simplified answer. If you put 1 and 2, 6, yes, it's correct, but it is not completely correct because it is not in simplest form. All right, I'm going to do another one in another color. Okay. We're going to do 1/2 plus 1/5. Okay. I'm going to do my least common denominator, or least common multiple. Now remember, multiples are when you skipped count, and factors are what you multiply together to get something. Okay, I can keep going if needed. What do they have in common? They have 10. So my smallest number that they have in common is 10. That is what I'm going to change my fractions to. I have 1/2 times something, and then I have 1/5 times something equals the 10 on the bottom. So what do I multiply 2 by to get 10? I multiply it 5. So now I have to do the same to get my top number to make it equivalent. So now my new number is 5/10 plus 5 times 2 is 10, so I have to do the same to the top. So it's 5/10 plus 2/10 equals 7/10. Now how do I know if this is in simplest form? I need to find my GCF, always. If I'm not sure, always. Even if I'm positive, I still want to do it. 1 times 7 is the only thing. 1 times 10, 2 times 5. They don't have anything in common but 1, so that is definitely in simplest form. Okay, so now you're going to go into Savvas and practice this. A lot of the questions have this, but you have to fill in the holes. So refer to these notes.